So, so we've talked about two things. So you've talked about this idea of element dhatu or ayatana. Ayatana is base, and so these are two things. And so now I'm sort of wanting to switch gears a little bit, but we can keep going if you want. And I want to bring in the idea of consciousness. Actually, if this is to be experienced, if this is to be perceived, this being nibbana, this thing that exists ontologically more than nothingness or blankness. What's its relationship to consciousness? And the way I wanted to enter into this conversation is to start with your name, Bhikkhu Bodhi. So this word Bodhi, could you tell me a little bit about what this word means? What is Bodhi? And when the Buddha was awakening, what's Bodhi mean, actually, is the question.
So Bodhi means enlightenment, the enlightenment of the Buddha. So it wasn't given to me because I've reached enlightenment, but I don't know, my teacher just gave it to me. I don't know.
You must be close.
I wanted a longer name, but he gave me the name Bodhi. I said, how about Bodhi Jnana? Bodhi's good enough. How about Bodhisattva, lion of enlightenment? Bodhi's good enough. So
you were like bargaining with your name, right?
His name was Ananda Maitreya, so how about Bodhi Maitreya, Maitreya Bodhi? No, Bodhi's good enough.
Nice. And so what's your, it means enlightenment, but what does, I guess, what's the relationship between Nibbana, the deathless state, and, this moment that the Buddha had, we call awakening or Bodhi?
Okay, so Bodhi and Nibbana are not the same in early Buddhism. Bodhi is the experience, the opening of the knowledge, not conceptual knowledge, the experiential knowledge by which one experiences Nibbana, and through that experience of Nibbana eradicates, destroys certain of the bonds or fetters or defilements that keep one in bondage to the cycle of birth and death. If I remember, the commentaries actually they give several explanations of the word Bodhi. So they say Bodhi could be the knowledge of the four paths. So the four paths are like the four stages of enlightenment in early Buddhism. The path of stream entry, once returning, non-returning, arhatship. But then they also say that Bodhi is the knowledge of the fourth path, only the highest path. And then Bodhi is the knowledge of the Supreme Buddha. And then they say Bodhi is, sometimes they equate Bodhi, if I remember, even with the Sabanyuta Jnana or Savajñā Jnana, the omniscient knowledge of a Buddha. But in the broader sense, Bodhi is the opening of the faculty of wisdom to the point where one actually sees and realizes Nibbana. By seeing Nibbana at the same time, one is directly knowing the Four Noble Truths, because the way it's explained is that when you see and realize and experience Nibbana with the world-transcending path, there for the first time you really fully understand the meaning of dukkha, the first noble truth. You're in the process of starting to eradicate the craving and the other defilements, which are the second noble truth, and one is brought into being that world-transcending path that will culminate in full liberation.
Okay, so what we're learning tonight is that, the Buddhist contemplation on things, right, the five aggregates, for example, and the three natures of these things are like doorways into Nibbana. And you've taught us that, doing this practice, it's like Nibbana emerges from that practice. And that experience of that emergence is being equated with Bodhi. Is that fair?
So I wouldn't say Nibbana emerges from that experience, because Nibbana always exists.
Good, it's unconditioned.
You could say that what emerges from the contemplation is the experiencing, the realization of Nibbana.
Bodhi emerges from the contemplation.
We can say Bodhi emerges from the contemplation.
Bodhi emerges from the
and Bodhi, or enlightenment, is the knowing, the experiencing of Nibbana and all four truths.
Yeah. So the content of Bodhi is Nibbana, we could say.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so here's one thing that I'm thinking now is, of course, one of the five aggregates is consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this sort of in the line you were reading, I think it said there's a turning away from the five aggregates for the emergence of Bodhi, which is the experience of Nibbana. And so if you're turning, so I guess my question here now is, what is the relationship between Bodhi and consciousness?
Okay, consciousness as I start trying to conceptualize this in sort of broad terms, and then bringing in maybe an Abhidhammic perspective. Yeah. Okay, so we have in early Buddhism 6 classes of consciousness. So there's eye consciousness, ear, nose, tongue, body consciousness. So none of those sense consciousnesses experiences Nibbana. So Nibbana is experienced and known through mind consciousness. It's an experience with mind consciousness. But within, you say consciousness is just, maybe you could say the awareness or the bare knowing, but the function of actually penetratively knowing is performed by a mental factor, a mental function. And that function or factor that sort of penetrates, understands, and realizes Nibbana will be the mental factor of panya, or this would be Sanskrit prajna, wisdom, which is conjoined with consciousness. But consciousness is more like sort of the background awareness. Consciousness itself maybe doesn't have the understanding. It's the prajna or panya that has the understanding.
Could we say that prajna or panya is an activity of consciousness?
Yeah, I think we could put it that way.
Yeah, so of course, so then, when we're going through this contemplation on things, and these three natures of these things, and an experience is emerging, an experience of Nibbana, and we've defined that a little bit more now. That's not the five sense consciousness. We've turned away the five sense consciousness.
Certainly.
Turned away from them.
Yeah.
But we haven't completely turned away from the sixth, it seems.
Yeah.
It's still there,
Yeah.
and actually, what it's acting as is a type of. There's an activity going on, prajna, panya, wisdom activity.
Yeah.
And this constitutes the subjective side of Bodhi.
Yeah.
So the objective side of Bodhi is Nibbana, unconditioned.
Yeah.
The subjective side of Bodhi is consciousness acting in a way of prajna, which is conditioned, I understand it. And so this is the experience of enlightenment that the Buddha had under the Bodhi tree.
Yeah.
If we are describing it. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, very cool.
Yeah.
So then when someone who's achieves enlightenment and then passes
away.
and they're again in Nibbana, it seems that the mental consciousness Bodhi must continue. Is that true or not?
Well, from the perspective of the early suttas, all five aggregates fall away and cease. So there isn't a mind or consciousness continuing into Nibbana.
So then this seems different to what we just described. The moment of Nibbana.
Yeah.
It's important that the subjective side is consciousness. It's the aggregate is there.
Yeah.
But then it seems like there's this Nibbana.
Yeah.
Ongoing Nibbana.
Yeah.
Where there's no consciousness, but there's Nibbana.
Yeah.
And that seems to be. This seems to be getting awfully close to an idea of cessation, is what I would say, which is what we wanted to avoid at the start of the conversation.
Yeah, I know that this seems a bit paradoxical.
It's paradoxical.
Yeah, but certainly I would say that the suttas make it very clear that Nibbana is, as I said, an unconditioned element, a reality, a state, whatever.
Yeah.
And also they speak without any qualification about the five aggregates as coming to an end with the attainment of Nibbana.
Yeah.
And so, but the way I sometimes try to resolve that paradox or maybe contradiction to myself, is to think that what happens is that it's not that consciousness is sort of continuing in Nibbana, because if it's continuing, it would have to have some thoughts.
Yeah.
So what is it thinking?
Yeah.
But the way I formulate this to myself is that consciousness becomes, can we create a verb, nirvanized?
Yeah, nirvanized, yeah.
Yeah.
I like this way of thinking because normally the consciousness has a base,
Yeah.
the mano
Yeah.
ayatana, yeah?
Yeah.
And so at this point when the great practitioner passes,
Yeah.
this base is no longer there, just like the I sense
Yeah.
consciousness base.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if the Nibbana itself could act as a base. And indeed, earlier you said it's described as a...
It's described as a base, but not in the sense of a base for consciousness. When ayatana is used in that other sense, when we speak about the 12 bases, then those are the bases for consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an interesting point. I've just never thought of it quite.
Yeah, because we want there to be...
Yeah.
We don't want there to be consciousness as in the aggregate.
Yeah.
But we want Nibbana to be ongoingly experienced because it's not just a state of
Yeah, I
nothingness.
say so, definitely.
Yeah. And so then
Yeah.
there's a subjective element to this Nibbana, as we understand
Yeah,
it.
and of course there are passages and suttas which describe Nibbana as paramasukham, supreme bliss.
Yeah.
And what is the other one? I think it's paramasanti, the perfect peace.
Yeah. So it seems like Nirvana is a different type of experience.
Yeah.
Completely different to however we've experienced the world.
Yeah, like in early Buddhism, when experience is formulated and sort of dissected and analyzed, it's always analyzed in terms of the 5 aggregates.
Yeah.
And then the suttas are pretty clear that the 5 aggregates within conditioned experience cease with the attainment of Nibbana element without residue remaining. Yeah, in fact, there's a distinction made in some suttas between the Nibbana element with a residue remaining, and that is Nibbana as experienced by the Arahat, the liberated one, during life, as long as the body continues, the life faculty functions. And then there's the Anupadisesa Nibbana Dhatu, the element of nirvana without any residue remaining. But it would seem that there would have to be some experiential element, it's difficult to formulate this, in order for the idea of paramasukha, supreme bliss, and paramasanti, supreme peace, to have any meaning.
So even this nirvana without residue remaining is described as blissful. Is that also described as blissful?
Yeah, what's interesting, I'm trying to think whether there's any statement. Actually, what is said about the Nibbana element without residue remaining is only, it's very, very terse, that all that is felt becomes cool right here.
All that is felt becomes cool right here.
Yeah, cool in the sense of like a fire going out.
Uh-huh. Interesting. So what do you make of that?
Well, it's referring to what we think of as regular feeling, because it is contrasted with the Nibbana element with residue remaining. Because when the residue that remains is this body with its sense faculties and the mental activity. So in the course of life, the way the explanation goes, the liberated one continues to experience pleasure and pain, what is agreeable and disagreeable, dependent on these 6 sense faculties. And so with the attainment of Nibbana without residue, the 6 sense faculties come to an end. And so there's no more experiencing of pleasure, pain, the agreeable and disagreeable.
There's no contact anymore, so there cannot be feeling, right?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that experience of supreme bliss, supreme peace, is a feeling in the way that feeling is understood as an ordinary conditioned phenomena.
So would then you say that the bliss associated with Nibbana, or even the experiencing of it, is that conditioned or unconditioned? Like the Nibbana is conditioned, is unconditioned.
Nibbana is unconditioned.
But this description, these adjectives describing Nibbana, is just, so this is a bliss that is the bliss of something unconditioned.
It would have to be unconditioned, yeah.
And therefore also the experience of it would have to be an unconditioned experience.
It would be an unconditioned state, an unconditioned bliss.
Yeah, which is completely different to the experience that we have.
Exactly, yeah.
And Nibbana is right here, right now, yeah? Is it or not?
Well, Nibbana is always existent.
Yeah.
It's a little tricky if you say that it's right here, right now.
Where's here?
You get the idea if I, I could put the direction into my
where's the GPS for Nibbana?
If I turn the corner, am I going to run into it?
Yeah.
But it's always present in the sense that because it's unconditioned, it doesn't have any arising, and it doesn't undergo any kind of transformation, and you have to pacitang vedita bovinyuhi, you have to realize it individually for yourself. And so you could say it's almost sort of, maybe you could say that it's internal, always present internally, and when you develop your samadhi and panya, your wisdom and your concentration of wisdom to a certain point, then maybe the inner barriers that are separating the mind from Nibbana break down, and then you see Nibbana.